Hi, I'm Francesco Osino.
And I'm Benjamin Massey. We are both sophomores on the Michigan men's rowing team.
The Michigan men's rowing team is one of the best in the country, even though we have no school funding and we're designated as a club sport.
This is the story of how we have overcome countless obstacles and be able to compete with perennial powerhouses of the sport.
While Title IX has given immense opportunities to the women's team for them to compete at the next level, the men's team has had to come over a bunch of obstacles, yet we are still as successful as they are.
This is the story of Michigan men's rowing.
And now an interview with Lucas Allen from the men's team. All right, who am I here with today?
Lucas Allen on the men's rowing team.
Now, Lucas, are you ever jealous of the equipment and funding that the women's rowing team has?
I wouldn't say jealous is the right word. They definitely do have nicer stuff, but we have a pretty solid alumni base, and they donate a bunch of money every year that help us get boats and even recently a new facility. So I think that overall our alumni compensates for a lot of it, but yeah, I wouldn't say jealous.
Here is senior Ethan Rind giving his insight.
All right, who am I here with today?
Ethan Ryan. I'm a senior on the men's rowing team.
So Ethan, are there any advantages to being a club sport that a varsity IRA team does not have?
Yeah, definitely. As a club athlete, you have to do all that fundraising yourself. You have to do the rent rowers. You have to do the million-meter challenge. Whereas varsity teams don't have to do that. And I think that creates a level of shared suck and attracts people that are willing to row even though they have to do that. Who row truly because they love the sport and they love the team and not just because they're good at it.
So you're saying there's almost a sense of ownership, a sense of pride when it comes to you have to raise the money yourself, you have to do all the hard work, and that's a valuable thing. Am I correct?
Yeah, I definitely think that's true.
Great. So the last question I have for you is, what does being on this team mean to you?
Being on this team means a community of like-minded individuals that love to work hard, love to show up every day, and love to work towards something bigger than themselves. And that's something that's made me feel really happy and fulfilled during my time in Michigan.
Here is longtime head coach Greg Hartstuff and his take.
Hi, Coach. Could you quickly introduce yourself and the team?
My name is Greg Hartsock. I'm the head coach of the men's rowing team here in Michigan. I've coached here since 1992. The team was formed in 1976, so I've been here most of the team's life. It's always existed. The rowing site has always been on Argo Pond, a dammed up portion of the Huron River, about a mile and a half from campus on the north side of town. So I've been coaching there on that body of water for 32 years.
Sweet. So about the team. So the team is a club team, as you know. And so how does that affect your coaching style, your coaching strategy, and would that change at all if the team was a fully funded varsity program?
So if I were coaching a varsity team, in terms of the actual work with the athletes, the training, I doubt it would be much different than what I do. The only thing that it would maybe change would be if we were a varsity program and we get 300 or so inquiries every year on the website for recruiting. These are mostly kids who are scholarship hunting, and they see our results and they think that we have funding. And then when they find out that we don't, they go elsewhere. But of those types of kids, some of them are recruitable, and so if we had scholarships, some of them would get scholarships. We probably also recruit internationally more, just like most of the best varsity programs, and we'd be able to, with the resources that Michigan would put behind it, just like our varsity women's team, we'd be able to draw some, particularly Canadians. And that the kids that would come in would be coming in at a higher level. So you could, if that might change a little bit about how I do things, but not how we row, not how the training goes really. maybe more evolved training, but yeah, I wouldn't do much different, to be honest. And I've always believed that from the beginning. I think sometimes when I talk to other club programs, they get caught up in this. One of my most hated expressions is "it's just a club," and we don't allow that. Just because guys start thinking that way, that you're building in excuses for losing, and you have I demand a lot of the guys, and I don't apologize for it. We lose some guys because of it, but I'd rather not have them than half-ass things.
Right. So like with the club, you said it was like kind of impacts the mentality. Is there like positive aspects though of it impacting the mentality? Because I know for like me personally, when we go against teams racing Denmarkers, I want to kill them. So does that play a role at all?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think is an advantage that we have is the pride of ownership. Pride of ownership is something that when people buy their first home and they have, they own it, it's theirs, and so you tend to take care of it more. And yeah, there can be a chip on your shoulder sometimes about, there's just a few more hurdles set up for club teams, and when you're racing varsity teams, you're just going to have to leap a few more of them. So that chip on the shoulder has served our program, especially back when we competed to IRA, the Intercollegiate Rowing Association. That was a chip on the shoulder that the guys had for sure, and that chip could be infectious. So it drew more people in, and that is an advantage. Now, in the end, you have to really work hard to not let what I call a clubby mentality seep into your program. And it sort of goes back to what I just said, making excuses because you're just a club. You just don't want to half-ass things. When you start half-assing things, guys will invest in themselves less. And this building that we're sitting in, that the alums have just slapped down $3.5 million for, came from the fact that they invested themselves. They invested themselves back when they were student athletes here, both financially, physically, emotionally, and that years later, that served them, and they're successful because of it. And they know that those lessons can be drawn the same way that they drew them from the current student athletes, and that's why they give to the program and want to make sure that it stays alive.
Coach Hartsuff also mentioned the freshman 8 of 2002, who placed second at the IRA National Championships, losing only to Washington, beating other funded teams and perennial powerhouses of the sport.
And our blade design, if you didn't know, is almost identical to Cal. Cal has a chevron that points in. We have a chevron that points out. Okay? So the announcer, as he's coming down and calling the races, is misidentifying our freshmen as Cal.
Wow.
And as we're watching this, because I'm riding my bike on it, and our freshmen got to the point in the third 500 where they had a scheduled move made, and they just rode right away from Cal. And all these kids, international, some of these kids rode in the Olympics.
Jeez.
Right. I mean, at that time, freshmen were not eligible for own varsity aids. So if you recruited a freshman, you were required, the only events he could row in were freshman events.
Interesting.
And so you had a Calbo with an Olympian in there, right? And because he was recruited from Serbia. So, and given a scholarship. So you had these fully funded on scholarship guys, and our recruited guys had all done runner rowers and paid dues, pulling away from them. It was just, it doesn't get much better than that.
Some athletes on the women's team will also give their perspective on the matter. All right, who am I here with today?
I'm Thea, and I'm a sophomore on the women's rowing team.
I'm Maddie, and I'm also a sophomore on the women's rowing team.
Now, girls, what are some observations you've made from the men's team, like some pros and cons, if you will, that you don't really see on the women's team because of the funding they received and Title IX?
One of the pros of the men's team that I've noticed is that everyone gets to race in their season. I think it's just the difference in how the championship races work for a funded sport versus a non-funded by the school sport. So I just think it's cool that everyone gets to see their hard work from the whole year pay off in the end, no matter what.
A pro from the women's team, I think, is that we have access to so many resources outside of athletics. So we have access to free tutors or academic counselors or other like mental health professionals, and I think that those resources are really helpful to athletes, and I know that the men's team doesn't have access to those resources even though they work really hard.
Who am I here with?
I'm Maddie Matos, a sophomore on the women's rowing team.
Now, Maddie, do you ever wish you were a club team like the men's team?
I guess, what are some of the advantages that you're seeing?
Well, one of the biggest advantages that I see on the men's team is how close we are. Because, since we pay to play pretty much, we have a collective sense of ownership on the team.
I mean, from that perspective, I think that is something that's unique and that the women's team doesn't necessarily have to go through, because we are very blessed and fortunate to be a varsity funded sport by the school, which includes a lot of different perks and like access to things that I guess you guys wouldn't receive. But I think a problem that we all face is that sometimes we take it for granted and we get a little greedy and just, I guess, look over that sense of like, yeah, we're all here, but are we having to care as much in order to keep our sport funded? Not really.
The main message here is that even though the men's team does not have direct funding from the school, we still find ways to succeed in the sport we love.
Nicely put, Francesco. Instead of letting the school do all the work for us, we push ourselves forward through finding creative ways to fund ourselves and donations from a strong alumni base that wants to see us succeed just as they did.
If there is one thing we learned from our 2002 season, where we placed 6th at the IRA National Championships, losing only to Washington in the freshman 8 and medaling in other events against other strong teams, is that even though we're not funded, that does not automatically put us out of the question for finding success.
Ultimately, funding restrictions caused by Title IX does not have to limit the caliber of performance a collegiate team can achieve. In the world of college athletics, and especially rowing at Michigan, the drive to succeed supersedes funding.